Hey y'all, this is Tasha and I am back with another video. You could be anywhere in the world, baby, but you here with me and I appreciate you. Thank you. Welcome back to another Married at First Sight review. This is almost one of the last ones. The show is finally starting to wrap up and come to an end. Thank you, baby Jesus. Woo! It's been a long season, y'all. But we are going to jump right into this episode. Do not forget to hit like, subscribe, comment below, all that good stuff. You know how we do every week. We in here. So we are now on episode 15 when the show starts. We are about 11 days away from decision day. So they show all the couples getting their things together and leaving the retreat. And yeah, I swear, production continues to be so petty. Like, super petty. They show all the couples in their separate cars, dancing, singing the songs, laughing, having a grand old time. They go to Henry and Christina, crickets. Crickets. Henry is in the car yawning like he just can't wait to get out this car with her. I'm like, really, y'all, petty. We see y'all, but it's funny, but it's petty. All right, once they get home, Henry says that they made it through the weekend being cordial with each other. And we see once they get back, they start unpacking in separate rooms. So they're not even in the same bed. I don't even know when that happened of him moving out of that room into the other bedroom. So I'm sure maybe them being on the retreat was a little bit awkward if they had been sleeping separately and then they had to sleep together in that one bed that was in the cabin, unless one slept in the bed, one slept on the couch. I don't know. But we see that they are definitely sleeping separately. They shoot over to Woody and Amani and they talk about percentages in the forms of how committed they are, and you know, if it's increased, decreased, stayed about the same. And Woody talks about like how basically he's almost at or really close to 100%. Amani states that, you know, previously she was about 50-50, and then she jokes and says, I'm about the same, and Woody gets a little upset, and she's like, I'm joking. It has increased, but she doesn't really say how much it's increased for her. And Amelia and Bennett basically say they're leaving their decision day up to fate. They want to, you know, flip a coin, see what happens. Should they stay married? Should they get a divorce? Oh, Bennett and Amelia. When they switch over to Karen and Miles, they show that Karen is allowing Miles to massage her feet. I say allowing because, you know, she asked him, you know, if you wanted to, can you rub my feet? Because, you know, if he probably would have just did that on his own, she probably would have had something to say about that. So he rubs her feet, and then they start talking about decision day. And Karen says she doesn't want decision day to start bringing on, you know, this pressure on them. Oh, I feel like if I took shots every time she said pressure in these episodes, I would be an alcoholic at this point, because she thinks they don't want to apply pressure to anything and everything. Like, how is decision day not going to be applying pressure? It's whether you're going to stay married or get a divorce, which is it's a pretty big deal. So there's gonna be some pressure involved with that, Karen. But she's like, you know, just, you know, I just want to make sure I've done everything that I could, you know, just to try to make this work. And when she said that, I was like, but you haven't though. You haven't done everything you can to make this work. Like, now you can't be like trying to open up, show affection, be intimate. That's like putting in your best player in the game with 5 seconds left and expecting your best player to make you win the championship. It ain't gonna happen. It's too late, Karen. Stop it. You did not do all you could for this relationship. And we are now at the 11th hour and it's too late. Game over. We see that all the couples are individually meeting with their friends and family throughout this episode to kind of get some feedback to help them make this decision. So we see Amani meet with one of her girlfriends and just talk about how things are going with Woody. She says she feels confident going into decision day and feels like, you know, they basically know what decision that they're gonna make. And she tells her friend that she actually loves him. She felt like this should be harder than it really was, but basically She's saying that they're in a good place, and basically they know kind of where both of them are kind of going on decision days, what I can gather from what she's talking. Next, we see Bennett talking to his friend in a little watermelon outfit. It's actually kind of cute. I would wear it lounging around the house. But Bennett has two friends over, and he has that one friend, I can't remember his name, that one friend that is like the realist. Like, we all have friends that are pretty, real and bring us down to earth with what exactly is going on. This guy took it overboard. He's basically saying that for the past 4 months, they've been playing house. I'm like, not really. They are legally married. They were living together, not just playing house. I understand they didn't know each other, but they were not just playing house, sir. They were legally married. However, on the flip side of that, he does bring up a good point when he says that you can't learn people's true colors until you've gone through hardships with them. And basically, he kind of feel like Bennett and Amelia's been living in this bubble of a honeymoon phase and just seeing all the good attributes of one another. And he doesn't know if Bennett has maybe seen the real her because they just haven't experienced anything. So I do agree with that to an extent, because I feel like you do need to really get into a deep down ugly argument and see how you guys can come out on the other side. However, if you're the type of couple that, just gets along and you genuinely do not have big blow up arguments, I don't encourage you just to find some serious thing to argue about just for the sake of arguing to see how you guys will come out on the other side. I don't believe in that. So it's like, I see both sides, but no need to rock the boat if nothing is happening to make them have this huge blow up. So get it. And then he says that he feels like it's a side of her that he hasn't seen yet. And I was like, so do you know something the rest of us don't know about Amelia that you would like to share? Because he's kind of saying, taking it real personal, like he knows there's other things that she does or she feels or she says that she's just not showing Bennett. And I'm just like, dude, your friend seems to be fairly happy and he just wants some support, and you are just like raining on his parade. So that one friend was getting on my nerves. I'm all for being honest because I'm honest. I don't sugarcoat a lot of what I say. I'm a straight shooter. But be so in a way that you're not so harsh about it, okay? Yeah, I felt that a little bit from him. So Woody meets with his grandma to talk about his marriage, and his grandma is just the cutest little old lady. I mean, she looked like she could be all of 45 years old because, black don't crack. But Woody, he's kind of talked to her about his single life, and he's just like, you know what, now that I am married, single life was kind of boring. Like, I kind of went out, I was afraid to give it up, but I was going out, trying to impress people, doing this, doing that. But at the end of the day, you were always coming home by yourself. Like, you didn't have anyone to come home and share that with, and he really enjoys having that time and someone to come home with Amani. Grandma does give her stamp of approval and says that, she likes the new Woody because she's seen him change since he's been married to Amani. And she just gives him really good advice at, to have a good marriage, just make sure you respect your wife, pay attention to detail, and make sure you listen, because men don't really listen. So make sure you listen. And I'm like, great advice, Grandma. Great advice. So I think as long as Grandma is around to keep, putting little nuggets of wisdom in Woody's ear, I think he'll be just fine as a husband. I know he was like the one in the beginning. Everybody, his friends, even viewers, we were like, dog, this ain't gonna work. But he has definitely, we could see through the cameras how much he's changed and grown throughout this process with Amani. And then even his shirt said, I think like, black, educated, and married, or something like that. And his grandma was like, what's your shirt say? She said, oh, you just advertising it and everything. Look at you. So it was so cute. After that, we see that Miles has a friend that comes over, and he's able to really kind of be real with his friend. And he tells us about a situation of Karen just still not even when the opportunity presents itself for her to try to do better in terms of being a little bit intimate. I mean, in the sense of being intimate, of being in close proximity with Miles. Of one day she you guys know how their apartment's set up with them having a couch here and then like a single chair here. He said that she had pulled her laundry out and she put her laundry in the single chair and he was sitting on the couch here. He said that she put her laundry in the single chair. She went and grabbed some food. Instead of her coming to sit on the couch with him, she sat on the arm of the single chair where she had just put her laundry. Miles was like, dude, I'm right here. Just sit next to me. Touch me, arms, like something. And I'm just like, Karen, really? And that's what I'm talking about. You trying to say you don't try. You don't try. That was a perfect opportunity for you to sit next to him and eat your food. And you didn't even try. Girl, I just rolled my eyes. Miles' friend says that he thinks Miles knows himself enough to make a good decision. And I think that's true for the most part. I'm just a little bit nervous about Miles being a people pleaser, that I hope when decision day comes that they ask for his decision first and he's able to say no, hopefully. He's able to say no, because I'm afraid that if she says she goes first and she says yeah first, he will say yeah, just to continue to work on it, not disappoint her, not hurt her feelings, and just to go with it, although he knows he's not 100% happy in that. So I think he really has to focus on what he said, because in there while he was talking to his friend, he asked, he said that Karen is giving him, basically she's giving him all the capacity that she has to give. Like he thinks she's trying her best and she doesn't have any more to give, but unfortunately her best does not meet the needs of Miles. And point blank period, that's what it is. No matter if that's her limit and that's her trying, it does not meet his bare minimum, and that's recipe for disaster. So Amelia has some friends over, and then we also see her do a video chat with a tarot card reader, and she has on the same little watermelon outfit that Bennett does. So I don't know if they got matching outfits or they just sharing the same outfit. Knowing them, they just sharing the same outfit. So the tarot card reader, basically Amelia kind of gives her some background, and she says all good things, that they're a good match, and she kind of lucked up during this whole experiment. They do ask her about the pending move, and she says that, you know, there's some anxiety there and some fear about being open to that. So just really kind of just coming to terms with that and being okay with everything that's coming up with her and Bennett. And then Amelia goes to talk about this weird cucumber dream that she had about Bennett and not knowing what that means to her friends, about him just growing and growing and growing. And he grows into a cucumber, and then she has people over, and then they start slicing the cucumber to put in sandwiches, and she goes to take a bite, and she takes a bite, and Bennett starts talking from the sandwich because he's the cucumber. These two, they're just so weird. But anyway, her friends are very supportive. Her friends like Bennett, and they are very supportive of whatever decisions she makes. They will be there for her, they say. Karen has two of her friends come over to their apartment to get some feedback and tell them how it's going with the marriage. She tells them how much more affectionate Miles is than her, and her friends do point out, like, that's kind of a big deal. That's a deal breaker. People kind of break up for that if it's feeling like, you guys are just on two separate pages when it comes to that. And again, her friend then says she thinks Karen is giving all that she can, but she says, is that enough for Miles? I don't think so. So I'm like, we've then heard this twice this episode, and I agree 1,000,000,000% that she is giving all she knows to give, at least for the level of her attraction for Miles. Maybe if she was more attracted to him, she would give more, but for where she is, this is all that she has, and it is what it is, I believe. And then Karen comes back and she starts talking about how, in the beginning she felt like Miles wasn't real and he was holding back and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm sick of hearing that story as well, because she's talking about that the entire season, and Miles has not changed who he has been the entire season, besides pulling himself back, like being more reserved, and maybe the compliments that he gives or the touching that he wants to do, he's probably pulled back on that because it makes her feel uncomfortable. But at the core of who he is, he hasn't changed, Karen. It's been the same consistent Miles throughout the entire season that we've seen him. But as I was kind of listening to them talking, Karen's friend with the straight hair, she was saying how much she liked Miles and he's a good guy. And I was like, sis, are you interested in taking Miles off Karen's hands? Because that's what it seemed like a little bit. She was like, you don't want him? I'll take him, honey, because he seems like he's quite all right with me. But I'm just sick. At this point, I am sick of seeing and hearing Karen on my TV. I'm ready for decision day, so I don't have to see her anymore. So we get to see Brent and Olivia, since they have decided to part ways. We knew that from the previous week. They do decide to meet with their friends and tell their friends, because their friends did not know that they decided to go ahead and call it quits. Brent kind of tells his friend in the beginning that he blames the pandemic on them kind of going through some things sooner rather than later. Like the pandemic forced them to go through some things that they probably would not have had to address until later on in the marriage, but they had to because they were around each other. And I'm like, I don't really buy that, because since the honeymoon, y'all had issues. That was way before the pandemic. So can't blame the pandemic on that one. Y'all just wasn't a good match. Olivia shares with her friend that she's kind of sad it didn't work out, but she felt like if she was able to give him a little bit more in regards of intimacy and affection that he was wanting, she felt like that maybe he would have been able to give her a little bit more, which I understand her thoughts and reasoning, but knowing the type of man that Brent is, I don't believe he would have given her any more. And based on what his friend says about him later on, I feel like I'm pretty spot on with that. Because basically his friend does say that Brent does not bend or sway very easily. He says that, he's pretty much, firm on his stance of things, and he can be pretty aggressive, and that can come off as off-putting. And his friend says that. So I'm just like, you know him better than any of us, and we all read the room with him and says that this is everything you're saying is him. Even with his friend asking him, if there's anything he felt like he learned throughout this, he's still being an asshole and was like, yeah, I learned about production, and I learned about, being in a pandemic. And it's like, dude, really? This is why you're gonna be alone with your cats, because of this. But his friend seems to be like an amazing guy as he's talking to him and really talking about how Brent is, and basically how this was not going to work out because of Brent's personality. I feel like we should give Brent's friend a chance with Olivia, because he seems to be all right. Wasn't mad at him. I think let's try that Married at First Sight. Match up his friend with Olivia and see what happens. So next we see Christina and her paid Medicare acting friend who was at the housewarming. He then comes back to pretend to be her friend while they sip on some tea and stuff. She says that she and Henry are still in a gray area, and I'm like, what gray area are you talking about? It's pretty black and white with you guys. I don't see the gray area that you're referring to. Y'all are sleeping in different rooms. You are not affectionate with one another. He's pretty much mad at you most of the time. I don't know what gray area you see, but okay, Christina. She says she's reading between the lines that she feels like he just doesn't like her, and she's just like, I've never had somebody do this, and I'm pretty likable, and I'm just not used to guys being like this. And I'm like, I don't think Henry has had to read between the lines much. You've been rude. You've shown that you've been rude. You now had spread lies about him. So again, he's been pretty straightforward with you. Whether you want to hear that or not, I feel like he really didn't make you read between the lines. He just gave it to you. At the same time, Henry is meeting with his friend. What's her name? Kristen, I think. She's been on a few times at this point. And basically talking about how he's been very upfront about their struggles and how communication is still an issue. How Christina had threatened to hold that gay text message as a threat over his head, saying that, basically she was gonna, if he didn't act like, things were going okay and have her back, then she was gonna kind of expose this. And I was like, Christina, you just continue to be, you just continue to be scum. Like, girl, stop it. You are just trash. But Christina just continues to talk to her little friend. And even though we've seen her in all these episodes, she just continues to be a little bit delusional. and she's like putting on as if she don't know what went wrong, and she feel like everything's been going well, and if we can maybe do this, things will be fine. And I like what I see from him and the little glimmer of hope, and you know who he is when he tries to be funny. And I'm like, we've been watching the same show. Oh gosh, she's exhausting. So we finally see all the couples that are getting together to have their last dinner, because it's like now 2 days before decision day. So the night before, they always sleep by themselves and they come up to decision day. So Woody and Amani, they go out and enjoy dinner. They're outside. You can tell the pandemic is kind of in full swing, because you see some people with masks, some people just hanging out. I don't know what's going on. But he shares his feelings about her and says that, you know, she's just changed him over the course of these months, and she's made him a better man. She's made him a better man, and he just can't see himself without her. I was like, oh, so sweet, Woody. It just cracks me up how he's just like the plot twist of this whole season. Of he ends up being the one that falls in love head over heels when everybody was like, you get married? Okay. So funny. But it was just so sweet to see them have that moment. And then Amelia and Bennett, they have pizza in their apartment that's filled with balloons, and Amelia's wearing a crown with an orange on top of it that Bennett had from some play production or whatever that he's produced. So they get into a conversation kind of about decision day in the show, and they showed this clip last week, and I thought production was being a little bit dramatic, but turns out they were being honest when Amelia says she didn't know about getting married. She kind of just wanted to come to be on a reality show. And I was like, oh, Amelia, you were doing so well. Why did you wait till 2 days before decision day to act up? We were going so well, so well. I just wasn't expecting that from her. And Bennett seemed genuinely shocked as well, of like, whoa, okay. Because he's now realizing that they both came in here for very different reasons. She wanted to be on TV. He truly wanted to find his soulmate. So although I think Amelia came in that way, of course I believe she has fallen head over heels in love with Bennett, and she truly wants to be married. But I was like, you really, out of all the reality shows out there, you thought Married at First Sight was the one you should take a shot at because you just wasn't sure if you was going to get picked anyway? But you got picked and you end up being somebody's wife, which is, you know, a pretty big commitment, Emily. I'm going to need you to do better. You a doctor, honey. You a whole doctor. All right, Henry and Christina go out to dinner, and it's awkward for them. They talk about decision day. Christina says she's proud of them for sticking it out. I was like, girl, y'all barely made it. She says that sometimes she just acts a fool, and she just needs to she needs somebody to put her in her place. You're a grown woman. Put yourself in your place and stop acting a fool. Get on your medication like you said you was going to do weeks and weeks ago, and act right, okay? And then when Christina asks Henry what he likes about her, y'all, I nearly lost it, okay? First, Henry was at a loss for words. They just kind of show him, you know, he starts moving his head, and he's like, and then he says how spontaneous she is. He's like, let me find my interview in HR, let me pull out some of these generalizations. You're very spontaneous. And then he says that she writes well, and they flash back to when she had to write that note to her younger self. And Christina starts crying. It's so sweet. I didn't know you felt like that about me. That's just so nice. Oh my God. Girl, this girl needs therapy. Oh my gosh. Therapy, girl. Please, because you cry at the craziest things, the most minute things you cry at that are just like everybody looking at you crazy like, why the hell are you crying about this? Because this man told you write well? When Henry said it's like they live in two different realities, I was like, that is the perfect way to put it. She is definitely out there in Mars, and we here on Earth, and she got a ways to go to come meet us, because Lord, she's out there. We see Karen and Miles have dinner in their apartment. She brings up this whole masculine thing again. And Miles says that's the piece that he kind of completely doesn't really understand. And I'm with him that I'm just like, what are you talking about with being masculine? I don't get what you're saying. And she's, you know, talking about she wants to be able to submit to someone, have her husband lead the family, put her in her place, respectfully, of course. I'm like, what is it with her and Christina about wanting a man to put them in their place? I understand every now and then sometimes women, we can get a little smart, start popping off at the mouth, and maybe you do got to be like, hey, we're not doing that today. But for that to be like a need or a want from you, like, no, we grown. We are all adults here. We can make great decisions on our own without somebody putting us in our place. Girl, stop. So I thought that was odd that her and Christina had said that. And I was like, y'all got problems. To say that they both seem to be very headstrong and independent women, you want a man to have to put you in your place, that is not masculinity, Karen. Stop it. If y'all understand more what she's talking about, help me out in the comments because I need it. Bennett is feeling some kind of way if they get ready for bed, and he thinks, of course, him and Amelia got in there for two different reasons. Side note, as we see him getting ready for bed, he puts on the same dress and is just taking off his pants. Do y'all ever think about if we've seen Bennett shower this whole season? I don't know. Sometimes I just look at the TV and I'm like, I can only imagine what it smells like with the sheets, that onesie, and that dress. Probably ain't Downy fresh. Oh my God, I just can't. So it is just, it's crazy. But anyway, that's my personal faux pas with them. Woody and Amani basically talk about how if kind of Amani said no on decision day, Woody's like, he'll spaz out a bit, and Amani's like, spaz out, I need you to calm down, not do all that. But I get him saying that he would be upset because I feel like throughout this entire time, it's been pretty much understood that they will both say yes. So I could understand if she said no, it would probably come out of left field for us and him. So he would probably be a little bit upset. But I think they'll be fine. They're not going to do it. But as the episode wraps up this week, we kind of see them all starting to pack up, and basically all the husbands leave the apartment so that the wives can stay there, except for Karen and Miles. Karen ends up leaving so that Miles can be there alone, and we'll see next week what decision day brings, y'all. Leave your final comments below. Who do you think is going to stick through? And who do you think ain't gonna make it? I don't really think my opinion has changed much since the very first episode. Still think Woody and Amani and Amelia and Bennett is gonna make it, and that's it. Everybody else, it ain't gonna happen. But we'll see next week who's right, who's wrong. Let's chat it up in the comments. Let me know how you guys felt about this episode this week, and I'll catch you next week in the final episode if they don't drag this out in more than one part. All right.